Welcome to episode 201 of the Effortless Swimming podcast. My guest today is Prescot Balch, and Prescott was recently featured on one of our YouTube videos where we're looking at how someone can go from a 2 minutes 10 per 100 down to 1:30s. And over the course of 3 years, that's what you did, and have really made some huge improvements. So I wanted to have you on the podcast to talk about that, but also talk about what's happening recently about getting a little bit frustrated at the start of the season, not having some sort of races that weren't as quick as you wanted, and then you're able to overcome that and get the times back down, because I think a lot of people tend to go through that. So first of all, welcome to the podcast, Prescott.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And you came to our first Noosa camp, actually, which was at the start of 2020, about a week before the world shut down. You traveled over from the States.
Yep.
And timed it out very well.
It did. Yes, it was great. A lot of fun. I'd do it again. As soon as your country opens back up, maybe we can do it again.
Yeah, oh man, I'm hoping so. I'm really hoping next year we can get something going, because I certainly miss coaching face to face. There's only so much online I think I can do without actually seeing people.
Yeah, well, I have a good story to tell about how good you are at coaching over the internet. So maybe let's dive in and we'll toot your horn.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So would you like to tell people about your background with swimming, how you got started in, and all of that?
Well, I took up triathlon 3 years ago, and swimming was like with many people, it was the thing you had to add to get to triathlon. I rode my bike a lot, I ran a lot, and I decided, heck, I'll add swimming and start doing this triathlon thing and have some fun. It was really apparent really quickly, especially after the first race, that it wasn't something I could just do a lot of and get better at myself. And so I consulted the internet to go look for some help. And I don't know how I bumped into you, but I did, and we connected. And I've been using your coaching services for those 3 years. I had one race under my belt before I got started with you. My pool times were, whether I was going all out or going as slow as I could, they were about 2:10, 2:13 per 100 meters. And my pace in the open water was about the same. And with first race after that, after maybe 4 to 6 weeks of coaching, I took a good deal of time off that. I think I came out of the water in an Olympic distance, 1,500 meters, under 30 minutes. So right around 2 minutes per 100. So really quick improvement at the start of that 3-year time period. Big gains at the beginning, and then they sort of taper off and they get smaller and smaller. But I've had subsequent to a couple races in that season and then into 2019 with the Noosa camp, I was making really steady progress. I think I'd taken that single pace of 2:10, 2:13, and I had taken it down into probably the upper 1:30s by the time I got to Noosa. That's an all-out 100-meter pace. And all of a sudden I discover I have multiple paces. I can go really hard, I can go easy, I can find some tempo pace in between, and you start to feel like you're more of a real swimmer. I think the beauty of the approach that you took during that time period was, don't try to work on too much. Work on a couple things, take those couple things, focus exclusively on them, and ultimately for the purpose of getting them into subconscious muscle memory rather than conscious focus. Once they're embedded in conscious or subconscious muscle memory, then you go to the next things that you need to work on. And fortunately or unfortunately in swimming, there's a never-ending list of things to work on. But here I am. I go to the Noosa camp, spend a week there, get a lot of really solid feedback. Ended up you had a race. We had us all participating in a race on the last day there. I had a pretty decent race, was really happy with the result. I came home, and just as the world was deciding to shut down, I was really disappointed because I was only a couple months away from our summer triathlon season. So I had races lined up. I was all ready to go. I had a couple more months under my belt of training in the pool, and I'd get to open water, and I'd show up in June, July, August for our race season, and I was hoping to do really well. And of course, you know what happened. There weren't a whole lot of races in 2020 after that Noosa camp. I kept swimming. I fortunately had a gym that stayed largely open during the shutdown, so I got a lot of time in the pool. I got a lot of yards under my belt, and I kept shooting you videos every once in a while and getting your feedback, and paces were coming down steadily. A few seconds off 100 pace every so often. Periodically there'd be a decent sized breakthrough. Sometimes there'd be a frustrating couple of months with no real progress. But if I graph it and look backwards, the frustration melts away, because you can see a steady progress from that 215, 213 days back at the beginning to even being able to get under 130 in 100 meters and in all out, and not too shabby. But the story after a barren 2020 racing season, the story takes sort of a little interesting twist. I had now been training, like nonstop training block for 18 months, I guess, and was heading into the 2021 season and hoping that races would actually happen, and they seemed like they would. And lo and behold, we get to June, and of course I'm in the upper Midwest, so training outdoors here is a very limited time period during the year. I'm not super hardy in cold water, even with a wetsuit on. So you kind of get July, August, early September as reasonable swimming temperatures outdoors. So by the time the first race came up in June, I had precious little time outdoors. The prior season, because everything was canceled, I just never really went out of my way to swim outdoors. So probably had a couple of swims in open water in 2020, but in almost none, to be honest. And so very little practice for almost a year and a half. June, I do the obligatory couple of swims in open water, and my pool times are fantastic. I'm nailing really good 100 repeats, 200 repeats, 400 repeats, all at really healthy paces, low 140s, even upper 130s for the full like 2-3K swim in the pool. And I go to my first race after probably 1 or 2 open water swims, and I wasn't super impressed with the times in open water, but I just sort of wrote it off as, well, I'm just taking it easy. I'm just sort of getting used to the open water. Then I get to the race and I have just a terrible race. I'm expecting probably 28, 27 at worst, and I come out of the water barely better than 30 minutes, which puts me back to where I was back in 2019, even 2018. I had a like just under 30-minute pace. And so here I'm thinking, like, all this work with effortless swimming, I'm doing super well in the pool, and I show up at a race in early June in 2021, and I have a horrible race, horrible time. And of course, it's compounded by it was our state championship. It's like I wanted to be a big fish in a small pond, and I finished in second place in my age group by 25 seconds or so. So, with all reason, I could have easily taken a few minutes off of my swim, which would easily have vaulted me into first place in age group. It would have been nice. So that was the beginning of the frustration. And I had a few weeks between that race and the very next race. And I decided, well, I need to get more open water practice. I haven't done it in a couple of years or a couple of seasons, and I just need to get out there. So I have a few more sessions in open water. There's not structured at all. I'm just going out there to go out there, and I'm swimming back and forth from one place to another. Nothing fancy, nothing structured at all. And I show up for the next race, sort of writing off the first one as a bit of an anomaly. Maybe I didn't go hard enough. I was taking it too easy. was trying not to get gassed in the swim leg so that I had a good bike and run. And the second race was even worse than the first one, and not by a small margin. I got out of the water in the second race in a 34, which, and I immediately reached out to you afterwards and I said, I don't think I can swim that slow in the pool if I try. Like my legs would sink. It would be, I'd be looking like a beginner swimmer if I tried to go that slow in the pool. And so I was super frustrated. I didn't know what it was. I'm I guess analytically inclined as a genetic makeup. So I said, I'm just going to isolate single variables. I'm going to figure out what it is. If swimming is all about stroke rate and stroke and distance per stroke, it's got to be one of those too. Now there are lots of variables that go into each one. So start to pick apart things that could be impacting one or the other. So I tried all the natural things. I tried, does the wetsuit matter? So wetsuit, no wetsuit, no difference. I came out with terrible times either way. I went to the pool and I tried sighting in the pool thinking, well, it's the sighting that's slowing me down, lifting my head up every once in a while. I would sight once or twice per length in the pool. Absolutely no difference in the pace between those lengths and the ones where I didn't sight. Choppy water, smooth water, didn't make a lick of difference. I tried literally everything. And I was one step away from actually, no lie, measuring my pool to see whether it was short.
That's,
and if it was really
getting desperate, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really desperate, right? I did not go that far because what happened next was well, first of all, I reached out to you and you gave me a couple of things to think about and try, and frankly, nothing worked. It was the same result. And of course, you're in a bad position because all you've got to go on is what I'm telling you verbally. You can't see me like you see me when you're coaching me over the internet with my pool swimming. So I didn't really have a whole lot of expectation. It was more out of desperation. Like, is there anything I can try? But coincidentally, at that same time, you were publishing an 8-week Faster Freestyle course. And I was so beside myself. And by the way, to set the context, there was a race coming up. That's our USA Triathlon Age Group National Championships. And 2 seasons ago, I had surprised myself by qualifying. And I had a terrible race, like embarrassingly bad race. And I was dead set on getting there this year and at least proving that I belonged, if not having a really good race. So I'm rapidly approaching this race day where I want to redeem myself for a very poor performance 2 seasons ago. I've put in an abundant amount of work across all 3 disciplines, and my swim is falling apart. It's going backwards. So nothing seems to be working. And then just purely coincidentally, you publish the 8-week Faster Freestyle program. And I just decided on the fly, I'm going to pretend, I'm not going to pretend. I don't swim well in open water. I'm going to treat it as if it's a different sport. And I'm going to wind the clock back to 3 years ago when I first got started with you and say, like, I'm a terrible swimmer. I can swim, but I can't swim well. Just apply that to open water. So I took your course, week 1, 2, 3, 4. I had about 4 or 5 weeks in between race 2 and in the age group national championships. And I just said, instead of going to the pool 2 times, 3, 4, 5 times a week, whatever I could do, I was going to take advantage of every decent weather day and go open water swimming. And I was going to do every one of those workouts that are prescribed in that program in open water. And where there were prescribed distances, I would either use buoys that marked a swim area and just choose like 1 buoy, 2 buoys, 3 buoys, depending on length, or I would even count strokes if I didn't have buoys to go with. But I essentially did those structured workouts in open water. And I think in hindsight, it was the first one that probably really turned the light bulb on. It was apparent by the time I was through that first block, relaxation and breathing, that there was something about the context of the open water that was very different than the pool. Pool is very controlled, pool is very calm. The visual cues are all the same. They're burned into my memory from going back and forth lap after lap after lap. You know just when to turn your head back. You use, well, I use lane dividers to make sure that I've got one goggle in the water and one goggle out. There's all these cues that you get in the pool that you don't have in open water. And what I believe was happening to me was just sort of starting over, redeveloping all those cues, redeveloping comfort in the water, redeveloping relaxation. I started with terrible breathing patterns. I was getting short. I was getting gassed doing whatever, 1K, a half a K in open water. And, you know, in the pool, a half a K or a K, even at an aggressive pace, is nothing to even like get me my heart rate up. So clearly going through even just week one made this huge difference, because it allowed me to be bad again and be okay with being bad again, and sort of start over and rediscover how to get comfortable in open water versus the pool. And I could feel from week one and going into weeks 2 and 3, I could just feel how much more calm, how much more comfortable I was in open water, how much less the chaos of open water would disturb me. Prior to this, when I was just frustrated as all heck, you know, that everything that was like sort of slightly different from one day to next in open water would bother me, and it would disrupt me. If there was a little bit more chop than the previous day, if the water wasn't as clear because of turbulence kicking up the sand on the bottom, it was just chaotic and frustrating, and it was really debilitating to my ability to relax and just focus on the stroke. So I start to see a little bit of progress, you know, some days way better than others. It wasn't like I snapped my fingers and all of a sudden was hitting my pool times again. Not even close to that, but slowly but surely I could feel myself calming down. I could feel myself rediscovering each of the steps that you've walked me through over the last 3 years. I could feel myself redeveloping those skills, but specifically to open water, developing new cues, developing a new sense of comfort in the pool, and really feeling my body again in the water. I think, again, looking backwards, I think, well, I was in the water and I was moving my arms, but I had no sense of my body in the water. Whereas in the pool, I'm so hyper focused on what the water feels like on my right thumb, or going over my knee as I swim. You know, you get that laser focused on certain feelings in the pool because you're so used to the stimulus around you. But in open water, it felt like somebody was just sort of blaring something in my ear or shaking me like a rag doll. And when the environment is that chaotic, you lose the ability to focus. And so anyway, I made it through week 4 of the 8-week Faster Freestyle program. I showed up for age group national championships, and I had a fantastic race. It was still slower than the pool, but it was way faster than my previous 2 races. I got out of the water 27:48, which is about a 150 pace. So I guess compared to the pool, I'm still almost 10 seconds, somewhere between like 8 to 10 seconds off of what I think a decent race pace would be if I was in the pool. But I was thrilled. that was almost 6.5 minutes better than a 1,500 meter swim a few weeks prior. By any measure, that's a fantastic improvement in that short a period of time. And then I had another 5 weeks to go before I did my first half Ironman. So up to this point, it had all been Olympic distance, and true to form, decided like I'm going to be crazy and move up to the next distance. And I signed up. I had signed up for a half Ironman, and I wasn't expecting anything miraculous. I continued to focus on the mechanics and the basics in open water. But when I got to the half Ironman, I didn't set my expectation any different than I'm going to do what I did at the age group race plus maybe 7 minutes. I just, I figured I would be roughly the same pace as age group national championships. And race starts. It was a 4 at a time start every couple of seconds. So I dive in and I go out kind of aggressively. It was in a protected bay in Lake Michigan. So there was no wind that day. So it was like, other than the washing machine effect of swimmers in front of you, behind you, and to the side of you, it was perfectly smooth water. So that had definitely had that going for me. I started fast. My goal was to start fast and then cut back just a little bit and then just kind of cruise the rest of the way. I just kept going fast though. I felt great. I was cruising along. The buoys were like flying past me. I had started in a self-seeded spot of about 35 to 37, I think, thinking that I would be right around there for my finish time. And I was passing people like they were treading water. And I knew I was going fast. I didn't feel like it was even work. I was splitting people down the middle. It was a blast. I was just on, it was like I was on top of the water, just gliding. And I got out of the water in 33:34. That 1900 meters was faster than the worst 1500 meter race just like a month and a half prior to that. Not a faster pace, a faster total time. I had done 34 something at 1500 meters, and that's when I got abundantly frustrated and reached out for help. And then to go from that to a absolute better time of 33:34 at 1900 meters, I just got out of the water like I had hit the lottery. And it's such a great feeling to get out of the water with a good swim time, but it's even that much better when you've been struggling with open water swimming essentially all season long. And you haven't had a real quote good or great open water swim for a long time. So I got out of the water and I had a great bike leg, and the running was probably the weakest leg of the race. But I'll tell you that 33:34, I kept saying to myself as my legs got more and more tired on the run, please don't waste a good swim. Please don't waste a good swim. And it kept me going for quite a while. I eventually faded a little bit on the run, but I ended up doing well in my age group. And, it was a great first half Ironman, and age group wise or relative to my peers in the age group, I came out of the water 8th out of 123. And if you had asked me if that was possible 3 years ago, I would have just laughed out loud.
Yeah, that's right.
I can swim in a forward motion, but I was 3 years ago, I would have said if I can get out of the water mid-pack, I'd be totally happy. So I don't know, maybe nobody fast showed up that day, and my relative placing was was a fluke, but to finish that high relative to age group was just icing on the cake. It felt like a great swim. It was obviously a relief based on my summer performances, but it really did. It was like a shot of adrenaline for the rest of the race, and ended up with a great half Ironman result to show for it. Really, really happy with it. So that's kind of the story.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that feeling of when you're passing people and the buoys you're going past them fairly quickly, and like you feel like you're just, you're on top of the water, you're swimming fast and nothing can stop you. Like that's one of the best feelings that you can get when you're swimming. So no wonder you felt like you'd been shot with adrenaline coming out of the water that race.
Well, and And when I first started triathlon 3 years ago, one of the first problems I had was the very common problem I understand of people going too fast, breathing too short, you end up hyperventilating in the water, right? I've had that problem multiple times, whether in just an open water training swim or in a race. And so my reaction to that has always been start really slow. Like start almost like you're doing a catch-up drill in the pool. Go really slow. Don't let the turnover get the better of you. Don't let the adrenaline of the race get the better of you. You don't want to go out gassed. And if I look back on that now, I think that was probably less of a problem of going out too fast. It was more of a problem of not being relaxed in the water. And so really solving that this time, well, I'll prove I solved it next season. But if I've solved that problem, then I'll end up having much better swim times that are much closer to pool times. If I can maintain the relaxation, then I can keep a fairly aggressive, for me anyway, stroke rate and not get gassed because I'm controlling the breathing and the relaxation in the water.
That's what it comes down to, isn't it? Like if you've done the training, you've done the work and you have that fitness there, then you can definitely go out a little bit quicker at the start and then either back it off a little bit as you're going through the middle of the race, but not much, but you can go out with speed. And for me, when I'm racing and I have a really good race, I'm going out quick, but the heart rate's kept under control. And I'm always mindful of, am I spiking it too much? Have I still got this under control and can I sustain this effort? And when you find that zone where you are going fast, and I think it's that easy speed that a lot of swim coaches talk about, where you're going fast, but it feels pretty easy. That's what you're going for at the start of a race. And it sounds like you hit that.
I think I did. I checked my my Garmin data afterwards, of course, and I was holding a pretty high heart rate, which surprised me because it didn't feel like work at all. It took maybe 400 meters for the heart rate to elevate, but then I held it from there for the rest of the race. And I wouldn't have designed it that way. I wouldn't have said go out at this heart rate, but the ease with which I was swimming, I literally felt like maybe a slightly hard workout, but it didn't feel like an all-out race. It was phenomenal. And it's the kind of race you just want to bottle up and keep in your memory for a long time and keep referring to it as the right way to do a race. Hopefully I can break that one out next time I head out to the course.
And looking back at a couple of months ago when you were frustrated with the times you're getting open water to where you were recently with a really good swim, what lessons have you taken from that? Well,
one, open water swimming is different. You got to treat it as different. You've got to practice it a lot. It's not, I think that the approach I took in prior years was just do it a few times to get used to it, to make sure that you're used to constant swimming and without the breaks at each wall. I will completely turn that on its ear each season from here on out. I'm going to essentially move my training to open water as much as possible in the summer months leading up to races. And instead of just, going out and swimming a solid 2K, go do intervals in the water, go swim buoy to buoy or whatever, count strokes, do something, but do your workout in open water and really get used to it and get comfortable with it. Make it feel as comfortable as the pool, and test yourself in all the conditions, because you never know what race day brings. So for sure, that's lesson number one. And lesson number two is never be too arrogant to refuse to go back to basics. or maybe said more positively, always be humble enough to go back to basics. I thought there for a minute prior to the frustration, I'm not a bad swimmer. I'm 57 years old. I can do all out 130 in the pool easy. I mean, not easy, it's hard work, but I'm it's not a terrible time in the pool. I'm feeling like a real swimmer. real swimmers don't have to go back to lesson 1 and do relaxation and breathing, right? So yeah, a little humility goes a long way. So maybe those couple of terrible race results were just the humility injection that I needed to get me to get back to the beginning.
That's what stood out to me, was just being willing to go back to basics. And I think of tennis players as an example of that. It's like when you're playing tennis, it's a couple of shots, but they have those fundamental shots just drilled down. And with really solid fundamentals, then you can work on the more intricate parts of tennis or swimming, whatever it might be. And but without those basics in place, then you're not going to be able to build upon them. And the thing with breathing and relaxation, that first week that we've got there, I think it's people look at that and go, I can breathe, I feel relaxed in the water. So a lot of times they'll just either skip it, or they'll just, they'll browse over and go, okay, cool, got that. And they won't actually go through it. But even for me, like I've had, when the pools are open a little while ago, there's been times where I've focused on my breathing and had a really good training session and just gone, wow, like I was a couple seconds quicker per 100. It felt great. And that was a really good training session. And, I've swum for like nearly 30 years now. And it's just that stuff, it really can make a difference, but it's hard to sometimes bring yourself back to those really basic things, especially like just, breathing, relaxation. It's just so simple.
Right. I think the other thing I'll take away from it is I need to learn to like open water swimming. It's been more of a chore and not necessarily a pleasant one. And some of that is the frustrating performance, but I feel more in command when I'm in the pool. It's a more comfortable environment. It's obviously a safer environment, but I feel like I have more control over the workout and the pace and pretty much everything. And you get into open water and it's a little bit cold, or it's a little bit choppy, or it's a little bit windy, or whatever. And there are just a few things that sort of knock you off that comfortable pedestal. And I have to keep going out and doing it. I have to make myself do it. Every reasonable weather day, I should be out there in the summer, and maybe I should even stop being such a wimp and go out in some slightly colder water temperatures really early in the season, so that I'm not showing up on race 1 with 2 swims under my belt. But I think I would benefit a lot from just a lot more work in open water. That's where I race, so I should do more work there.
Yeah. I think, that can certainly help. I think back to my first open water swim was when I was about 13 or 14 years old as a teenager, having only swum in the pool. And I never learned to sight. I never learned about like going around buoys or anything, like nothing. It was just like, oh, there's a team triathlon down at Blue Rock Dam, and we've chosen you to be the swimmer. I was like, okay, cool. I'm a good swimmer. I'm going to go out there and smash it. And I remember a guy that I used to train with and race with, way faster than me in the pool. He actually beat me, and he was like in this team that was formed to be like, to win the event. He was in the team that was planned to come second, but he beat me, and I was really filthy about it. So, and I was like, oh, I don't like open water swimming. And then I started coaching adults, and then we started to do these open water swims when I was maybe 19 or 20. And I was like, okay, this is actually pretty fun, but it took me a couple of years to actually learn how to do it properly.
I can see that. I'm not close to liking it yet. I'm getting close to being able to tolerate it and know how important it is to practice it, and results are really helpful there. But I really need to spend this next season getting to like it and feeling in command of it. And then I think really, really good things happen. Obviously, I've got a long fall and winter to work out in the pool. And so I'll keep working really hard there, try to take a few more seconds off of the 100-meter pace. And when the water gets to human temperature in probably June, I'll be back out there with a wetsuit on, trying to learn to like it again.
They've got like thermal wetsuits as well you can get, and you've probably seen like the little hoods or the thermal caps you can get too.
I would need one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, especially where you are, I imagine it's really cold at that time of year.
Yeah. So I figured I would probably have to do a Celsius conversion here for you, but I think it takes until maybe mid-June to get above 15 Celsius.
Yeah. Yeah. You're being soft then.
I'm very.
Our Vegas down to 10 Celsius.
I grew up in Florida. I'm used to bathwater temperatures, so I can't take the cold. I would need I need head to toe neoprene to keep myself in the water when it's that cold.
Yeah. But one of the things that I've started to do, probably more when I'm surfing than anything, because I haven't done a whole lot of open water swimming recently, but I do the same thing when I'm swimming open water and the conditions are like really windy and choppy and it's hideous. And you can take it one of two ways. It can be either like this sucks, like what am I doing out here? Or you can take the approach of like, isn't this wild? This is just like, I can't believe I'm out here in these conditions. And I was out surfing the other day and it was piercing down rain. It was really strong cross shore winds. There was so much bump. There was like me and one other guy out there. I could hardly see the shore and it was just like, it was all over the shop. And I was going to go in. I was like, no, you know what? I'll just stay out here and enjoy being out in the ocean in such wild weather. And it was I found it pretty fun when I sort of had that attitude. So this is more for myself more than anything too, but it's just like, when it's not desirable, you can sort of have that. It's like a Steve Irwin approach, right? Like everything's just like, isn't this awesome?
Yeah. Well, I find one strategy I really need to pull the trigger on and employ is taking my watch off. Especially when the conditions are bad, you're going to have terrible looking time compared to everything else. And you're out there to practice, you're out there to work on form amidst the chaos of the water conditions. So just leave the watch behind. I can't bring myself to do that. But maybe next time around when the conditions are really bad and I'm forcing myself to go out, I'll give that a shot. Because the mental, the sort of mental drain of constantly thinking to yourself, oh my God, this time I'm gonna pull up at halfway through before I turn around and the time's gonna suck. That's a huge mental drain. And it's yet another thing that is keeping you from focusing on mechanics. So I feel like if I could just get over that hurdle of not measuring one of my workouts, it would be really good for me in open water swimming. I could just, make up the time and the distance to put in my logbook.
Yeah. That's right. I will rarely ever, if I do ever take my watch out when I'm swimming open water, I won't look at the pace at all when I'm swimming because I know it's going to be probably 10, 15 seconds slower. And sometimes if I'm with the group, we'll stop and that sort of thing. So I do not worry about time out there. Yeah. And maybe you could go like the in-between step where it's like, take your watch out, see what time you leave at, like say it's 7:30 in the morning, and just see what time you get back at. And you could jump on Google Maps and measure where you're swimming.
Or I use one of those orange inflatable buoys attached to my waist, flotation devices when I'm in open water. I can just put it inside that so that I'm not tempted to look at it or start and stop it. So at least I get the measurement done, but I'm not, at least mid-race, I'm not worried about what the times look like. And I'm not going to be frustrated halfway through. I need some mental strategies to get me past my hang-ups about anal retentive measurement of all workouts.
It's like need like a 12-step program, I think, to overcome this sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking about giving up, like, what if I gave up coffee for even like a week? And I'm just like, no, I couldn't do it. I do not have that.
No, that's not
that
on
ability.
No, that's not on my list. I'd sooner give up my watch than coffee.
Yeah, that's right. So I thought, I'm definitely addicted to it. If I can't even do it, give it up for a week. But it sounds a bit like your watch. But Prescott, I really appreciate you sharing that on the podcast. I know you're not alone. The funny thing was when you sent that message, the message about the poor times in the open water and just trying to figure it out. I had probably two other people that same week who were stroke analysis members send similar things, and I'm like they just returned to racing and been a while out, and there's like bad times as well. So you weren't alone there. So I think this is really relevant to probably a lot of people who are listening to this. And it's always good to hear how someone, had a really good run, improved your times, and then drops back down, and then it came back up. And it's like kind of like in the analogy I've heard for investing in the market, right? It's going up a mountain with a yo-yo. So it's not always going to be upwards. It's going to have ups and downs, but the overall run is going to be in an upward trajectory. And it's what you've done, which is fantastic. So thanks very much for sharing on here. And what are you looking at now, the next 6 to 12 months? What's that sort of look like for you, and what are your goals with your swimming?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna do the couple of Olympic distances and probably another half Ironman next season. And I don't have them picked out yet, but I just want to keep getting better. I've got a stretch goal in mind on the Olympic distance to take about 10 minutes off my time, which will put me in some rarefied air in my age group if I can pull that off. So I've got a plan that I need a few minutes in the swim, maybe a couple minutes in the swim, and most of it I need to get back in the run. But I'm just trying for just continuous improvement, just keep chipping away at all three disciplines, but mostly the swim and the run. I think that's where I have the most room for improvement. And the swimming, I'm having a blast getting better at it. It's fantastic to sort of watch that trajectory rise and the paces decline. And I don't think I'm anywhere close to what I can eventually do. So I'm just going to keep working on form, working on stroke count, working on some upper body flexibility, just trying to do all the little things that will keep adding up to improvement. And knock on wood, this time next year, I'll have some more great stories to tell about good race performances. Yeah,
fantastic. Well, I think you can definitely do it. And I agree. You're not even near your limit or your capacity of what you can get in your swim time. So looking forward to working with you. And thanks again for being on the podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's been fun. Appreciate it.